Welcome to Museum Moments, the show that tells you what's happening at all the museums here in Museum City, Portsmouth. I'm your host, Rob Lauer. On today's show, we'll find out about upcoming exhibits at both the Portsmouth Art and Cultural Center and the Children's Museum of Virginia. We'll visit Emily Kilgore at the Naval Shipyard Museum for another installment of Hands on History. That and much more coming up right now in this episode of Museum Moments. Welcome to our March-April episode of Museum Moments. I'm standing in the Portsmouth Art and Cultural Center. I'm joined by Gail Paul, who's the curator. Thanks for joining us, Gail.
Thank you.
It's been a while since we visited.
Yes, it is. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. So, what's coming up in March and April here at the Art and Cultural Center?
Well, we'll kick off on March 4th with our first Concert in the Courtyard series. Due to likely inclement weather, that will be in the art annex next door.
Okay.
That'll be Matt Thomas. He plays guitar and harp guitar. Real talented young man from the peninsula.
And for those who maybe don't know what the Concert in the Courtyard series is, what is it?
Well, we feature a concert in the courtyard every first Friday weekend of the month, and so whether it's in the courtyard or indoors, anyway, it's a variety of different musical tastes and sounds and artists from the region.
Okay, and there's refreshments and
we have light refreshments. Beverages. Often it's accompanied by an opening reception for a weekend or for one of our exhibits.
Okay, and on first Fridays, first weekends, admission to the Art and Cultural Center is free, isn't it?
Yes, on the first Friday of the month, it's free.
First free, that's
5
great.
till 8 p.m.
All right, fantastic. So those kick off in March, and now what is happening inside?
Well, we're in the process of getting ready for two exhibits to open inside the galleries. Upstairs we'll have Vanishing Beauty, and that will feature artwork that relates to the environment. So there are artists that have dealt with a variety of different issues, everything from mountaintop removal to sea level rise, breathing fresh air, and onward. We'll have a variety of different pieces. So, for instance, we have this one piece behind us entitled Take Nothing for Granted. This is by Brent Crothers, and his work really focuses on environmental issues. Everything from mountaintop removal, sea level rise, and as this one, deforestation. We'll also have a variety of photographs, other sculptural works, some video pieces that also relate to rising sea levels.
Okay, and that is geared to open the 1st of April?
Yes, that will open with a reception on April 1st.
Okay. Is there anything before then or after that is going on at the museum?
We have two exhibits. Well, the 3 exhibits will open on April 1st. It'll be outdoor sculpture. So we're just kind of like combining it all into one big reception. So there will be 8 sculptures on view this year, coming from across the eastern seaboard with a variety of different materials, everything from steel to natural materials. I know there's some built out of wood, ceramics, so there's a variety of bronze, there's a variety of different materials.
Is there any particular theme, or is it just all themes, all types?
All themes, yes. So we just do we go after interested parties, so that happens usually in October the year before, and there's a juror for that exhibition. This year was Shelley Brooks from the Visual Arts Center at Tidewater Community College.
Oh,
so she was the juror. And they select the works for display, and then we are pushing it back a little bit this year. It seemed like there were so many times that I would try to open in March and we would have snow. So depending on where people are coming from, I've had artists coming from Maine and West Virginia and
so getting
Ohio.
the pieces here could be an issue.
Getting them here on time is an issue.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'm just going to save it and push it to April.
And those will be on view out in the courtyard?
They'll be in the courtyard.
Okay.
Then downstairs we'll have Degrees of Separation. That was an idea that came, one of the teachers at Portsmouth Public Schools came to me with an idea of the connection between who she studied with. In this particular instance, it was Jean Stith. She studied under Charles Sibley, so it's the connection that she felt with her teacher who had a powerful impact on her, and then Jean's students. So it's an interesting idea for an exhibit, and that will also be opening on April 1st.
And will that be all sorts of pieces, all types, all media?
All media. Jean is a painter, and so is Charles Sibley, so that was primarily her media and Sibley's media. There are students that definitely I can see the connection of the painting, but then others who have branched out, and of course they've had influence from other teachers as well. So that'll be lots to see for everyone on April 1st.
If someone has never been here before, tell us a little bit about things like hours, days, admission, that sort of thing.
This year our hours have changed a little bit. So we're open Wednesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. till 5 p.m. And on Sundays from 1 to 5. On the first weekend Friday, we're open until 8, so we're open from 10 until 8 on that day. And then the first Saturday, we're also free and open to the public.
Okay. And otherwise, what is admission usually?
It's $3 a person. From 2 to 17 is $2. We also offer a senior discount, AAA discount, so there's a variety of different discounts. We're a member of the Blue Museums, which if a member of active duty military, if they come with their ID, they can bring in up to 6 members of their family.
That's a great
with
deal.
Active duty for military. So that's a thank you to our troops.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, it seems like there's a lot going on then starting on April, so be sure to come down to the Portsmouth Art and Cultural Center and check it out. They are open all year round. There's always something really interesting to see here. Thanks for joining us, Gail, and telling us about it.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. The Portsmouth Art and Cultural Center isn't the only museum in Old Town featuring art exhibitions. Just 2 blocks away on High Street is the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. This museum is renowned for having 2 floors of interactive displays focusing on sports and famous Virginia athletes. But the Sports Hall of Fame also features sports-themed art exhibits several times each year. Now through March 27th, the Sports Hall of Fame proudly presents in its Ridley Sports Gallery the exhibit Turf, Lights, and Fields, A Photographic Journey. The exhibit displays the works of freshman, sophomore, and junior student photographers from Norfolk Collegiate School. Last September, Norfolk Collegiate officially opened its new $2.6 million athletic complex, which includes side-by-side turf fields with lights. At the same time, students developed their photographic eyes by turning their cameras on the complex and the events held there. The exhibit Turf, Lights, and Fields features the works of these students. For more information on the Hall of Fame, call 757-399-8031 or log on to www.vshfm.com. When we return to Museum Moments, we'll head over to the Naval Shipyard Museum for another installment of Hands-on History, and we'll find out about a new history exhibit at the Children's Museum of Virginia. That's coming up right after this.
At our house, we really like to maximize family time. That's why our favorite place for family fun is Old Town Portsmouth. We love taking the ferry over, then strolling through unique shops filled with one-of-a-kind treasures. Next, it's on to a great lunch at an outdoor cafe and an afternoon of fun with friends at the Children's Museum of Virginia and the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame and Museum. Food, fun, and adventure? No wonder Old Town Portsmouth is our go-to destination for family fun.
Welcome back to our March-April 2016 episode of Museum Moments. Being one of the oldest cities in Virginia, there's a lot of history waiting to be discovered in Portsmouth. The Portsmouth Naval Shipyard Museum is the custodian of much of that history. Even though the museum is currently closed for renovation, its dedicated staff is still hard at work. And the museum is continuing to sponsor events at other locations. So, let's head over to the museum to visit Assistant Curator Emily Kilgore, who will tell us about some of those events and share with us another installment of Hands-on History. I'm at the closed Naval Shipyard Museum with Emily Kilgore.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us again,
No
Emily.
problem.
And you're going to show us some things from the archives.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yes,
So,
today we're going to focus on some of the different flags. We have a lot of textiles in our museum, and they're very, very difficult to upkeep and everything like that. So what I chose to bring out today was a little bit of our different textiles. It's something everybody's familiar with, is an American flag. And a lot of people don't realize that American flags have changed a lot over time. So what I have today is from 3 different time periods, and we're going to talk a little bit about each one and some of the similarities and differences and the stories that every flag tells us in our collection.
okay.
So the first flag I'm going to start with over here is a flag that we call the Grand Luminary. And this particular flag we know is from 1859 because it represents the time period right before, or right after, sorry, Oregon joined the Union. So it only has a certain number of stars on it, and it still has the same 13 stripes, everything like that. And we call it a grand luminary because the stars actually create a star pattern.
I've never seen anything
So
like
yeah,
that.
and this was really popular from about 1830 to right around the Civil War time, and the soldiers particularly liked taking it into battle with them because you could see the star formation. The Union used it a lot, and what I love about this flag is that it has all hand-stitched stars.
Wow.
And so everything, it was made by one particular person, and we even have a couple of patches and everything that had to help fix it up. Unfortunately, like I said, a lot of flags, they're made out of all kinds of different materials, and sometimes they tend to fray and shred and everything like that. So it's up to us to keep it in a safe box, and sometimes we can get them conserved. Most of the time we're just trying to preserve that.
What is this made of?
This is actually made of a type of material that is very similar to nylon.
That's what it looks like.
It is. It is made out of a material similar to nylon, and you can see that it shreds much like a parachute would. We do know that nylon wasn't really popular for flags until after the Civil War, but you did see them every now and again, and I know from personal experience that these are very difficult to sew with. So I commend whoever created this in the 1850s, because I would not have been the one to want to do it. So our next flag over here is a little bit different looking. This is what we call a 13-star flag for obvious reasons. Also hand-stitched. You can notice that the colors are a little different than what our other flag is over here, because it is made of a different material. It's actually made out of a wool. And so since it was made out of a wool, we do know that it is a ship's flag, because a lot of times they were made out of a heavier material since they would be dealing with the weather and the wind and everything like that. We also know that it's a military flag because it does have the military insignia stamped on it. And one of my favorite things is that when these flags were handmade, when they had metal grommets put on them, the grommets actually have the dates on them from the year that they were put together and they were constructed and created.
So what year was this?
This flag is from 1890, and it flew on the USS Despatch, which has a really cool story behind it. It was used for a lot of different things in the 1890s into the 1900s, but it was actually the presidential yacht ship that actually took Grover Cleveland to the Statue of Liberty ceremony when it first opened. So the Despatch actually sank in 1892, and we were able to recover the flag from 1890. So it has a really interesting experience behind it, and like I said, it does have the military stamp on it.
And the blue, I mean, I guess this is just faded from use.
Yes, it's faded from use because it did fly on the ship. We do have some holes from the weather use. The bottom part of the flag is unfortunately very frayed, and we did have some moth holes experience because when this flag was originally stored on the shipyard, it was probably just in a box somewhere.
Right.
And it wasn't until it actually got into a museum that we were able to properly preserve it the way it needed to be preserved.
Wow.
So yeah, this is one of my favorite flags. It actually opens up to the length of this table, which is why I have it closed up the way that it is. Still the 13 stripes and then the 13 stars, because 13-star flags were common on Navy ships all the way up until World War II, and then they started putting different ships on. Yeah, it's meant to represent the 13 colonies.
Right.
So one of my favorite flags, but my absolute favorite flag is the last one I'm going to show you guys. And this one is what we call a 48-star flag. And this particular flag, significantly smaller than our other two, but it has on it the date, the proper date. It says the USE Mare Island, and it was actually stitched together on August 1917. So we've got a flag from World War I here, and it was probably a flag that flew over Mare Island, which was the first shipyard built on the west coast of California. And it was known for having the fastest speed record of building a battleship during World War I.
Wow.
So it's not the awesomeness that is the Norfolk Navy Yard, but at least we have something from the West Coast period.
The colors on this are brilliant.
They are. They are. This is made out of nylon mixed with a little bit of a wool fabric. The thread itself is a wool thread, and the stars on it are all hand stitched. And there's 48 of them because we did not have obviously Hawaii and Alaska in World War I. And this is one of my other favorite reasons why it's my favorite flag, is because the grommets, just like with our one from the Dispatch, the grommets actually say the year on them, which is like 1890 as well. So
wow, that's great.
It's really, really awesome. So I love the textiles, I love the uniforms, and the flags are some of my favorites because we have so many different ones. We have American flags, there are Korean flags, we do have a Nazi flag in our collection that's in need of some repair, but it is being preserved, and we have a couple of different things in there that are all just really like Commodore stories and admirals and everything like that.
That is fantastic. I know that you like history, you love history, that's your thing, but I understand that even though you work down here at the Naval Shipyard Museum, you are one of the ones who are responsible for an exhibit down the street at the Children's Museum of Virginia.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes, Centuries of Childhood is an exhibit that opened up at the Children's Museum about 2 weeks ago, and it is the story of 5 children throughout different time periods in history. There is a girl that talks about the American Indian life, and it's this experience where you get to walk through her original house and understand how she gathered food and everything, and it travels into a Revolutionary War child who is actually he's an understudy, he's training right now to be a blacksmith, so you can go learn about that. You can learn about a girl who is actually, I like to call it the Oregon Trail girl, and she is actually on a wagon heading out to the west during the time period we think of when we think of the video game Oregon Trail. There's also a young Jewish boy who is moving to the States for the first time and having to learn how to experience life. He talks a lot about how he loves music, and then it ends with a young African American boy moving to the city after living in the South and going to school for the first time in Chicago and understanding how life is different between the North and the South around the World War II period.
That sounds great.
All of them, they all connect in some way. A lot of them ask questions about how their life could differ from children in the past, and they also have a lot of really interactive experiences you can go through and really learn what it's like to be a child in a different time period and how it differs from today, of course.
Well, I'm sure you probably have the same. We both love history. I'm sure growing up here, going to Williamsburg and Jamestown, it always just triggered my imagination when I was a kid.
Exactly.
Imagine what it was like to live in this place with the lack of the modern luxuries and things.
And that's what makes this exhibit so interesting, is that it brings together, you can try on the clothing, you can pick up the food, you can understand how they packed things, and it's just all different experiences for all these different kids, and it really makes you sit down and think, how did their life differ and how is it the same? Because you'll find sometimes it's the same, they all have different interests and same interests. Exactly. We all like to go out and play. We all like to find things that interest us, and they all love, one of them talks about playing baseball for the first time and how much fun it is to be outside and playing in the wilderness, and it's, things that we all love to do.
Well, that seems like a great way to introduce kids to history.
Exactly. It's a great exhibit. It's been very popular so far. So we have it until the middle of April. So we're looking forward to hearing what people think.
All right. So check out the Children's Museum of Virginia. It's childhood through centuries of childhood at the Virginia Children's Museum down the street here in Portsmouth. Thanks for joining us, Emily. And we're going to find out a little bit more from Diane about some of the events that are going on that the Naval Shipyard is sponsoring, even though you're closed. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm now joined by Diane Cripps, who's the curator of the Shipyard Museum, and you are closed.
Yes, we are.
And for renovations.
Right.
Okay, but I understand that you still have things going on. You're still sponsoring events.
We do. The next thing that's coming up here is the next in our Friends of the Museum's lecture series. Our Friends group has sponsored a lecture series for years. It's a free event. It's coming up on March 10th, which isn't all that far away. We're trying something new this time. We usually have our lectures, of course, here in the museum in the evenings, but we can't do that now since we're closed. So we're venturing out into Portsmouth a little farther. We're going to be holding it at the Churchland branch of the Portsmouth Library.
Okay.
And we're going to be having it in the afternoon. It's going to be a 4 o'clock time slot, so we're calling it Tea and History. And we're hoping maybe we can reach some different audiences with a different time of day and a different location. But it's still a free lecture. There's lots of free parking, so it'll be easy for people to get to, hopefully. And we're having a gentleman by the name of Robin Reed. He's the executive director of the Casemate Museum at Fort Monroe.
Oh, okay.
And it's actually a very interesting site with a long history right here in our own backyard in Hampton Roads. And that's the title of his lecture, is 400 Years of History at Fort Monroe. It's actually not a place I've visited here. I've only been here for a couple of years, and it's a place I haven't gotten to yet, so I'm really looking forward to hearing him. He sounds like he's going to be a really interesting speaker. He's worked at places like the D-Day Museum and Colonial Williamsburg. He's made TV and media appearances, and I understand he's a really interesting person with quite a personality, so I'm looking forward to hearing him.
All right, well, great.
And we should have nice tea and refreshments that afternoon. We're just trying to do something a little different this time.
So be sure to check that out at the Church and Branch Library on Thursday,
March 10th?
March 10th,
4 p.m.
4 p.m. Thanks for joining us, Diane.
My pleasure.
When we return to Museum Moments, we'll look at a special exhibit paying tribute to a mountain of a man. That's coming up in just a moment.
A whole new world of imagination opens before their eyes. The Children's Museum of Virginia, Old Town Portsmouth.
From weddings to receptions to company outings and birthday parties, the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame and Museum is the perfect destination for your next special event. With classrooms, reception area, theater, interactive sports exhibits, and so much more, you'll love what the Hall of Fame has to offer. Schedule a personal walkthrough today and let us help you plan your next outing. Don't just have an event. Host your Hall of Fame moment at the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame and Museum.
Welcome back to our March-April 2016 episode of Museum Moments. February was Black History Month, and on Saturday, February 27th, the Portsmouth Community Colored Library Museum hosted a special exhibit, Coach Joe Langston, A Mountain of a Man with a Lion's Heart. That exhibit featured memorabilia celebrating Coach Langston's winning spirit, both on the field and off, as an IC Norcom student-athlete and as a legendary coach. Our cameras were there to talk to some of those who came to honor Coach Langston. I'm joined by Corey Stigby, who's an educator at the Portsmouth City Museums. Thanks for joining us, Corey.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
Now, I understand that you're the one who is basically the person behind the Coach Langston exhibit here. Well, why did you decide to choose to do an exhibit on Coach Langston?
Well, I presented it to the committee as part of the Making History Now series for African American Heritage Month. I want to focus one of our exhibits on local heroes. And I grew up in Chesapeake and played football at Deep Creek High School in the early 90s. And part of my experience was playing against IC Norcom Greyhound football teams that were led by Coach Joe Langston. And just having to have those experiences on the field, you just learn to earn, he just earned a lot of my respect as a player from another school. And a lot of the committee members thought that was funny. They were like, wow, he must have really been a good coach if he earned your respect and you didn't even play for him. And I said, yes, he did. He must have really been. So that started the journey for honoring Coach Langston.
And what do you hope that people take away from this?
Well, what I hope that they take away from this is that there's a story behind every piece of, as we say in the sports world, hardware that you earn with winning, the trophies, the plaques, the resolutions. There's a story that's behind it There are players that make it happen, but also, most importantly, there's a leader that's leading them. With Coach Langston, you know, the idea is that champions bring forth champions. He started out, this tribute starts out with his 1950 membership as a member of the 1957 state championship football team at IC Norcom. And then we go forward from there, and then it shows how it came full circle as he coached the 1993 state championship football team for IC Norcom. So the idea is that he was a champion and he brought forth champions. I mean, for him to be able to say that 250 high school student athletes went to school on scholarship under his tenure, that's a tremendous achievement for any coach. And if you read his biography or autobiography or biographical information, he chooses to focus on that more so than the wins and the losses and the championships. So I think that makes him a definite Portsmouth hero, because he was all about helping people to progress and getting higher education.
Thanks so much for the exhibit, and thank you for all you're doing, and thanks for speaking to us.
All right, thanks, Rob. Thanks for coming out.
I'm joined by Jamel Smith Sr., who was one of the students who actually, athletes who played under Coach Langston. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
What year did you play under him?
I'm 91 to 95.
Okay, and he coached you in football and track both?
Football and track, yeah.
Yeah, so how did he impress you as a man?
I first met him at a track meet that I ran in middle school. And actually, I wasn't going to go to Norcom. I was going to go to Manor High School. And so he had some of his freshman guys out there on the track team running. And at that point, I was in the 8th grade. And I beat those guys. And so he came up to me and he asked me what high school I was going to. I said I was going to Mount High School. And he said, "No, you're not." He said, "Give me your phone number." And I said, "Why?" And some of the guys with him was like, "He just questioned Coach." And so I gave him my phone number. And I say about 2 weeks later, I came home from school. And my mother said, I got a call from a guy named Coach Langston. And he said, if you come play football and run track from him, that he can guarantee that I will go to college. And I went to college.
That's fantastic.
So, I mean, at that point, I hadn't even thought about going to college. It was either the shipyard or the military.
So he really turned your life around.
Yes, pretty much.
What was he like to work under him as a coach?
As a coach, he was a very strict disciplinarian. I mean, he demanded respect from everybody. And it was always yes and no, sir, yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, to everybody we encountered in school. If there was any kind of issue outside of sports, if there was any kind of issue at home, school, he was always there to talk to you about it, help you through it. If you got in trouble, even if you got in trouble with your parents, you still had to deal with him. He treated us like men in high school. So he held us up to that standard, and he wanted nothing less than success from all of us. That meant in the classroom and on the field, and he did not want to hear any excuses. So when he asked you a question, you really had to think about the answer, because if it sounded like an excuse, you were probably going to get in trouble. To this day, I talk about him all the time, especially to my kids. And I have all daughters and one son, and my son is a baby, so he'll hear the stories when he gets older.
That's great. Well, thanks for joining us and telling us some of them. We appreciate it. Thank you. That's it for our show today. Besides the museums featured on today's program, there are other museums in Portsmouth, such as the Railroad Museum of Virginia, the Jewish Museum and Cultural Center, and the Visual Arts Center at Tidewater Community College. All of these museums are open year-round and also sponsor special events and programs. To find out about them, log on to www.portsvaevents.com. There you can find events listed by date, as well as links to the various museum websites. I'm Rob Lauer. Thanks for joining me today, and be sure to join me next time for the May-June episode of Museum Moments.